So, this is part two of why I believe all of us should be constitutional originalists and learn to fight fire with fire. So, you saw if you haven't seen the first video, go back and watch that because this will make a little bit more sense. As we know, with the Supreme Court going off the rails because they're using constitutional originality as the basis of basically either overturning or doing the workaround for all of the amendments that they can that would give us basically American rights. So let's talk about the Constitution. It has three main functions: to create a national government consisting of a legislative, executive, and judicial branch, with a system of checks and balances among the three branches. That basically means you don't want one branch going totally off the rails and turning the country well upside down. Second, it divides power between federal government and states. This is where we also have some issues. But for the most part, in New York, they may want more money towards urban development. Iowa would not need that. They'd need more money towards agriculture. So that's the sort of thing. The problem with the states' rights is it's been abused quite a bit. So the third, and this is the issue, it protects various individual liberties of American citizens. Where do those liberties come from? They come from the Declaration of Independence: life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. So to be able to live and have your life, the freedom, which would be a liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. It doesn't guarantee you'll be happy, but it does guarantee you have the right to pursue your happiness. If I, as a Black woman, do not have the right to vote, you are taking away my liberty, which is my freedom, and my happiness, which is my right to be represented as a U.S. citizen in the right to vote. Hence why they have amendments. So what is the role of an amendment? The role of an amendment is to improve, correct, or revise the original Constitution. They're banking on the revised in a very downward slope. But improve and correct, that's what amendments are for. And after the Constitution was enacted in 1789, that fall, they started working on the Bill of Rights, which would be the first 10 amendments. The number one being the right of speech and the right to have whatever religion you want. And we've been living under religious fundamentalism, and it's a horrible thing. The issue becomes not all of the founding fathers were Christians. Most of them were very well educated, and they knew about different spiritual practices, which is why I believe they have that as the first right, which we're also told that's why the Pilgrims came over, which we now know is not 100%. And the right to free speech, of course, to speak out against the government. And if the founding fathers were so Christian-based, they would have specifically protected all Christianity. I mean, we came off the Salem witch trials in 1692, and we're talking about 1776. So it's not like they didn't know there were other spiritual practices. But their view is, why are we killing all these people off? Everyone has the right to whatever spiritual practice they want. The problem is Christian fundamentalism has always reared its ugly head and forced people into that. The problem with forcing people under that yoke is that it goes against their life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. So if we are to be constitutional originalists, we can hold them to their feet to the fire and say, well, look here. The third function of the Constitution, which would be the original Constitution, is to protect individual liberties of American citizens. So all of these amendments that they're trying to do the workaround, which was meant to improve American lives, they're trying to retract and say, oh no, based on Christian fundamentalism, we don't believe this, or we're going to knock it down to states' rights. Well, even as a state right, they have to protect the people that are in that state. So if they sit back and say, okay, well, we don't feel that we need to educate children. Well, adults feel that an education for a child will help that child in the future for life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. If you're saying, no, we can only teach them a Christian church, or a Christian school, or Christian-based values in school, have prayer in school, have, everyone come to Jesus. Even in the Bible, you're not allowed to do that. You're allowed to expose people to the Bible, but you're not allowed to force them into a Christian mindset. That goes against God. And that goes against the free will that God gave all humans. And so, even whether you're a Christian or not, that's not, I mean, basically, Christian fundamentalists and the evangelicals are saying, oh, no, God doesn't know what he's talking about. He doesn't know what we want. We know. It's like, no, not only is it not right in the Bible, it's not right in the Declaration of Independence via the Constitution. Thank you very much. And so, when they're saying, oh, well, we don't want people in our state to be in interracial relationships, you cannot legally stop that because that is part of the liberties that are emboldened in the Constitution, that last line there, and that's pursuant of life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. So this is really kind of layman's terms, but if we all became constitutional originalists and fought them on life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness, what do you think the chances are they're going to sit back and overturn that? They'll probably try, but even on the Republican side of life, they're like, well, wait a second. You can't be working around all of our amendments, and if you did, it's still in the Declaration of Independence, ensured by the Constitution. Very basic. Let me know.